Vijay, and today we are going to discuss about the next topic, that is president. Okay, so the first point of the president is, see, article number 52 to 78 in part V deals with the president and other related things. Okay, so union executives, see, there are executive term we use normally. Okay, so what is executive? So constitution has defined the term executive, union executive. Okay, so just like a union executive, there must be a list of state executive, but that we are not going to discuss today. But what we are going to discuss today is union executive. Okay, so president, vice president, then council of ministers and attorney general, these are the people who comes under the union executive. Remember this list, because uh, except these people, nobody comes under the list of union executive. And some, like attorney general is something odd that you might not remember if someone asks you what is the list of who comes under the union executive. Okay, so just remember attorney general comes under the union executive list. Okay, so and next is there is no direct election for the president of India. Why? Because we have a prime minister for that matter. Okay, so that's why prime minister gets elected through the direct election, but for president we don't have any direct election. Next is president is called as the first citizen. Okay, so then next is he is the symbol of unity, integrity and solidarity. Okay, so remember that. You might tick constitution is the symbol of unity and integrity and solidarity. No, the president of the India is the symbol of unity, integrity and solidarity. Okay, next point is election of the president. How what to remember? See, there are so many things happen during the election of the president. Okay, so as per as is UPSC concerned, we just have to remember this part. Okay, so see, remember, only elected members participate in election of the president. Okay, no nominated member gets participated in the election of the president. Only elected members participate. Okay, then what we need to remember, second point is state legislative councils does not participate. Okay, so state legislative councils has both elected as well as nominated members. Okay, but still they don't participate in the election of the president. Okay, then what we need to remember is that then union territories which satisfies the above two conditions, like there are only two union territories. I am sure you can remember that, which participate in the election of the president. One is the Puducherry, and then next is the Delhi. These two union territories, remember, the elected members of these two union territories only participate in the election of the president. Okay, so and what about the election of the vice president? Okay, so we need to remember that in the election of the vice president, both nominated and the elected members of parliament takes part. Okay, remember that in the election of the vice president, no union territory participates, no state legislative assembly participates, but in the election of the president, elected members of the union territories of the two union territories, Puducherry and Delhi, and all the state legislative assemblies participate in the election of the president, the elected members of the state legislative assemblies. Okay, but state legislative council does not participate in the election of the president. This is the point that is important in for our prelims examination. Okay, and then what, then we use system of proportional representation. Okay, for the election of the president and vice president. Okay, so these are the basic detail that we need to remember in considering election of the president. For other details, I'm sure you can Google it. Okay, you see how exactly this process happens. Like there is weightage given to the member of parliament, there is a separate weightage given to the member of the legislative assembly. So these things don't need to remember the formula that they use to election of the president. That these things you Google it. Okay, next point is who decides the validity of the election. As our previous lecture we discussed that Supreme Court decides the election of validity of the election of the president. Okay, so next point is now remember that now just this is something a crucial thing, okay, critical thing that you need to remember. See, if someone is person gets elected as a president and he his but Supreme Court thinks that there was some some what we can say, some discrepancies were there in the election of the president. Okay, so Supreme Court thinks that we need to check its validity of the person who gets who recently got elected as the president. Okay, so obviously it will take some time for Supreme Court to decide the validity of the election of the president. In that time, the whatever the act done by that current president remains valid. Okay, even if that president election of that president is when invalidated by the Supreme Court in the later time period. Okay, but before that, whatever the acts done by that person as a president of India remains valid. Okay, remember this. Then next, what is the qualifications required? See, age must be 35 years. Okay, minimum age is specified by the constitution. The next point is to qualify, he must be able to qualify as the member of the Loksabha. Okay, so then next point is he has to deposit 15,000 rupees in RBI bank. Okay, so just remember that this is something that a tricky question they might ask on these types of points. So just remember, he has to deposit 15,000 rupees in RBI. Okay, not in any State Bank of India or Hyderabad bank. Next point is the oath of the president is administered by the Chief Justice of India. Okay, then kitna kamata hai? Again, the point is that the salary is the highest salary in the India. Okay, president gets the highest salary in India. Next point is then he has a personal immunity from the legal liability for his official acts. Whatever acts he done, we cannot punish him for that official acts. Okay, next point is he is immune from the criminal proceedings. Okay, we cannot arrest him, okay, for any criminal activity he has done as a president of India, even if he murders someone. Okay, so we can't arrest him. This is something dangerous power to him. Okay, the next point is if we want to do any civil proceeding against him, we need to give 2 months notice to him. Okay, so this is the point. Next point is there any term limit? No, there is no term limit for the president of India. But if you see, the president of the United States has a two times term limit. Okay, he can be a president only for 2 times, not more than that. But as a president of India, you can be selected n number of times. Okay, the next point is how to remove him. What is the impeachment process of the president? Okay, so to remove him, process can be initiated in either house of the parliament. Okay, it can be initiated in the Rajya Sabha as well as in Lok Sabha. Next point is to initiate the process, we need the 1/4 support of the 1/4 member of that particular house. Okay, if remember that if that process starts in a Rajya Sabha, let's say that process starts in a Rajya Sabha, then 1/4 member of the Rajya Sabha will start that process, will initiate that process. Then what happens, the resolution will be passed in the Rajya Sabha. Then Rajya Sabha, if passes that resolution by majority, then that resolution goes towards the Lok Sabha, the second house. Okay, the other house. Then what happens, the Lok Sabha will scrutinize that resolution. It will check the misbehavior of the particular president. Okay, then if that Lok Sabha finds out that the current president has conducted misbehavior, okay, then if they pass that resolution by majority in Lok Sabha, then only we can say that impeachment process is done and president is removed. Okay, but before initiating the such process, we need to give him advance notice before 14 days. Okay, so this is the thing. Again, as I told you that the other house will investigate in the matter. At that time of investigation, the president has right to appear in front of that investigation team as well as right to represent him in that team. Okay, he can send anyone representing him in that particular team which is investigating in the misbehavior of the president. Okay, so next point is if now the other we discuss these things. Okay, is that these types of things will happen, there will be investigation, then if the investigation finds that president has conducted misbehavior, then they will pass the resolution by majority. If it passes, then it has been said that president is removed. Next point is remember that whoever participates in the impeachment of the president participates in the election of the vice president. Okay, remember that, as I discussed earlier, to be for vice president elections, elected as well as nominated members of the parliament only. Okay, not state legislative assemblies as well as not union territories does not participate in the election of the president. So these people only will participate in the impeachment of the president. Okay, so whoever participates in the impeachment of president participates in the election of the vice president. Okay, so and remember that in the impeachment process both elected as well as nominated members of the parliament participates. Okay, next point is what is the order of precedence. Like if some due to some reasons president is unable to conduct the day-to-day work. Okay, so what will happen at that time, then vice president will become the president. Okay, so at that time he will enjoy all the privilege that president gets. Then next, if the vice president is also not able to conduct the job of the president, then the chief justice of India will act as a president of the India. Then if the chief justice of India is also not available, then the senior most judge of the Supreme Court will participate or will act as a president of the India. Okay, so next point is what are the powers of the presidents. Like see, executive powers are there, legislative powers are there, financial powers are there, then judicial powers are there, diplomatic powers are there, military powers also there. See, remember, diplomatic military powers are very easy to remember. See, any diplomatic things done by the government of India are done under the name of the president. Then he is the head of the militaries of the India. Like he is the head of the Indian Army, Navy, and as well as Indian Air Force. Okay, so he is the head of the these militaries of India. Okay, then emergency powers, that we will discuss in another topic. Okay, so right now don't think about the emergency, what are the emergency powers of the president of India, that we will discuss later. Okay, so what is remaining, the executive powers. What happens in executive powers, he will appoint various appointments are done by the president of India. These comes under the executive powers. Then legislative powers. Legislative powers means what? President is the integral part of the parliament. Okay, remember this point, is very important. President is the integral part of the parliament. And then so he can by legislative power means he can summon the session of the Loksabha, then he can dissolve the Loksabha, then he gives he addresses the first session of the Loksabha. Okay, then he nominates 12 members in the Rajya Sabha, 2 members from Anglo-Indian community to the Lok Sabha. Then he decides the disqualifications of member of the parliament in with the help of the election commission. Then these kind of things comes under the legislative powers of the president. Then financial powers. See what happens in the financial powers. The money bill can be introduced in the parliament only with the prior recommendation of the president of India. Okay, remember one more thing, as we discussed that money bill is if you want to introduce a money bill in the parliament, we need to take prior permission of the president of India. But so that's why a president cannot return the money bill. Okay, so remember that we will discuss in further in the further slides. But as of now, remember that we cannot, a president cannot return the money bill. Okay, in the both cases, like if in the state case also or in the union case also. Okay, he can't return the money bill. Then the judicial powers. Judicial powers means what? He can pardon, he can grant pardon, then he can reduce the punishment of a criminal. So these types of powers comes under the judicial powers. Okay. Then as I discuss that, we are going to discuss the diplomatic, military and emergency powers in emergency powers in next further topics. Okay. Next point is ordinance making power of the president. See, this is the very important power of the president. You remember that if either of this house of the parliament is not in session, or both the houses of the parliament are not in session, at that time president can create or make ordinance. Okay, that ordinance will have the same effect as the law passed by the legislature. Okay, so this ordinance has the same powers. Okay, so then these ordinances made by the president uh, have the same effect as the law passed by the parliament. Okay, next point is this ordinance president can issue these ordinance only on the topics on which the parliament can make law. Okay, so we know that there are three types of list are there: concurrent list, state list and union list. Then only on the concurrent list as well as union list, only the topics mentioned in those list, on that topic only he can create an ordinance. Okay, then there are three types of veto powers of the president: absolute veto, suspensive veto and pocket veto. See, in what happens in absolute veto? Absolute veto, president can withhold his assent to the particular bill. See, he can say no to particular bill using this absolute veto. Then suspensive veto, what happens in the suspensive veto? He can return that particular bill to the legislature. Okay, so remember one point here: if a particular bill is presented to the assent for the getting assent of the president, at that time if he uses suspensive veto and he says that I don't I want some modifications in that particular bill, and he returns that bill to the legislature, at that time if legislature passes the same bill without introducing any type of modification and present that bill to the president of India, at that time he has to sign on that bill, he has to give his assent to that bill. Okay, in suspensive veto, that is the point, that suspensive veto can be overridden by the legislature. Okay, then pocket veto. Pocket veto means what happens is that a pocket veto means he will not say either yes or no to that particular bill, he will just keep that bill in his pocket, so he will not even talk about that particular bill. So pocket veto is nothing but the is veto which give with power to president to suspend any bill. Okay, so remember that pocket veto is very discretionary power of the president of India. Then pardoning power of the presidents. See, pardon means what happens if that particular person gets death sentence. Okay, so he can president can give him pardon, so he can remove his death sentence. Next in commutation, what happens in commutation? He will give him a lighter form of punishment. Okay, if he has given some harder punishment, he will reduce that, he will make that particular punishment a softer one. Okay, he can give a particular person lesser form of punishment using commutation power. Then remission means what happens? The period of the sentence will be reduced. Okay, so if a person gets imprisonment for 15 years, so using remission power, president can reduce that 15 years to 10 years. Okay, so next is respite. Respite means what happens? Lesser sentence in place of originally awarded. Okay, so again same, commutation is and respite are somewhat same. Okay, then reprieve. Reprieve means what happens? In this using this power, he can temporarily stop the punishment. Okay, so if a particular person gets a death sentence, then at that point if he asks power president for mercy, at that time if president can use his reprieve power and stop that punishment for now, then he will scrutinize the whole case of that particular person, and then as per his wish he will use further, he will take the further action. This is nothing but the reprieve power of the president. Okay, next point is see, discretionary power of the president. So what are the discretionary powers of the president? See, appointment of the prime minister. At that point, if he want, he can appoint any person as a prime minister of India. This is a discretionary power of the president. Next point is dismissal of a council of minister. He can dismiss a council of minister. Then he can dissolve the Loksabha if he thinks that council of minister lost its majority. Next point is for every other thing. Okay, so these are the discretionary powers of the president for every other thing. Okay, so he has to take any decision, he has to consult that decision with the council of minister headed by the prime minister. Okay, this is compulsory by the 42nd Amendment Act. Okay, but then what happens, the 44th Amendment Act was there that gave power to president to return advice for reconsideration. Okay, so remember one thing, if council of minister and the president prime headed by the prime minister advises the president to implement a president's rule in a particular state. Okay, so at that point, if the president thinks that this is not good, okay, this is not been taken in a good faith, or any other reason he thinks that we should not do this, okay, so he can return that advice or say that council of minister and prime minister should rethink about that advice. This is power given to the president by the 44th Amendment Act. But now there is one thing that we need to remember here, is that after that, if the council of minister headed by the prime minister gives the same advice to the president of India, that we need to still impose that president's rule in so and so state, at that time he's bind this advice is binding on the president. He cannot return that same thing. Okay, so this is the nothing but the power of the president. So one more thing I forgot to tell you. See, a governor also has the same powers. Okay, he has the veto power, as well as he can pardon the criminals. Okay, but there is a difference. Okay, for in the pardoning power, governor cannot pardon the death sentence, as well as the if a person gets a court martial sentence. Okay, so these things like death sentence and court martial sentence are not pardoned by the governor, but president can pardon a death sentence and as well as a court martial. Okay, so remember, president can pardon the court martial as well as death sentence. Again, one more thing that I forgot to tell you is that the veto power of the president in consideration with the state legislature. What happens if state legislature passes a bill and gives that bill for the assent of the governor? At that time, governor can hold that bill for the assent of the president. Then at that time, a president can return that bill if only it is not a money bill. Okay, remember, money bill that we discussed earlier, money bill cannot be returned. Okay, a president cannot return a money bill, a governor cannot return a money bill for the reconsideration. Okay, but if the bill which is not a money bill, he can return as many times as he wish. Okay, a president can return any bill passed by the state legislature n number of times. Just remember this. But unless and until it is not a money bill. Okay, so if there is a money bill passed by the state legislature, president cannot return it. Okay, but if any other bill which is not a money bill passed by the state legislature, withheld by the governor for the assent of the president, that bill can be returned by the president n number of times. Okay, so these two things just don't forget. So thus we have concluded president. Okay, there are so many things that we might have missed, but I think this is enough considering prelims of the UPSC. Okay, so thanks guys for watching this video, and we will meet in the next video. Peace.